If someone told you that the most emotionally unavailable person you have ever loved might actually be capable of deep, real, committed love, you would probably laugh. You would probably say, "Not mine. You don't know him." But stay with me for the next few minutes, because what I am about to share with you is going to completely change the way you see avoidant attachment. And more importantly, it is going to help you finally understand whether the person you are dealing with is worth holding on to or worth walking away from. Here is the thing most people get wrong. They hear the word avoidant and they immediately assume that means emotionally broken, incapable of love, destined to hurt you. And yes, some avoidants will hurt you. Some will keep you in a cycle of hot and cold that leaves you more confused than a person trying to read a map in a foreign language. But not all avoidants are the same. And the ones who do certain specific things, the ones who show up in very particular ways, those are the ones who are quietly, slowly, genuinely trying to love you the best way they know how. And when you find one of those people, you need to pay attention, because they are rare, because they are not going to announce it. They are not going to stand on a rooftop and shout about their feelings. They are going to show you in the quietest, most understated ways imaginable. And if you are not watching for the signs, you will miss them completely. So before we go any further, I want you to drop a word in the comments right now. Just write the word open. If you have ever been in love with someone who seemed emotionally closed off, write it right now, because the number of people who share that one experience is staggering. And it tells me something important about why this conversation needs to happen. Also, if you are not subscribed yet, please do that right now. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because we go deep on relationships, attachment, and emotional intelligence every single week. And you do not want to miss what is coming. Now let us get into it. Avoidant attachment is one of the most misunderstood relationship styles in the world. Most of the content out there about avoidance is focused on the pain they cause. The emotional withdrawal, the sudden coldness, the way they seem to pull away right when things start to get good. And yes, all of that is real. All of that happens. But what is not talked about nearly enough is what happens when an avoidant starts to actually feel safe with someone. What happens when they begin to let their guard down just a little bit? What it looks like when an avoidant person is genuinely trying to show up for you. Because here is what nobody tells you. The way an avoidant shows love does not look like the way most people show love. It does not come with grand romantic gestures. It does not come with long, heartfelt speeches about feelings. It does not come with constant check-ins and declarations of devotion. It comes in a completely different language. A language that most people never learn to read. And that is the tragedy. People walk away from someone who was quietly offering them everything, simply because they did not recognize what they were being offered. So today, I am going to teach you that language. I am going to walk you through the specific things that an avoidant person does when they are genuinely invested in you. When they are pushing through their own discomfort, their own fear, their own deeply wired instinct to pull away, and choosing to stay, choosing you. And when you see these things, you need to recognize them for what they are, because they are not small. They are enormous. They cost that person more than you will ever fully know. Let us start with the first one. He stays. That sounds ridiculously simple, right? It sounds almost insulting to even mention it. But you have to understand something about avoidance. Their entire nervous system is wired for escape. When emotional intensity rises, when vulnerability is required, when closeness starts to feel like too much, the automatic response for an avoidant is to leave, physically or emotionally. They shut down, they create distance, they find reasons to be busy, they go quiet. This is not a choice they are making consciously in those moments. It is a deeply ingrained pattern that was formed long before they ever met you. So when an avoidant stays, when they sit with the discomfort instead of running from it, when they show up even when every part of them wants to disappear, that is not nothing. That is enormous. That is a person fighting against their own wiring because you matter more to them than their comfort does. Watch for the moments when things get hard and he does not vanish. Watch for the moments when you have a difficult conversation and instead of shutting down completely or going cold for a week, he stays present. He might not handle it perfectly. He might get quiet. He might need a little space to process, but he comes back. He always comes back. That is the avoidant version of showing up, and it is more meaningful than most people realize. The second thing is that he does small, consistent acts of service without being asked. Avoidants are not great at expressing their feelings in words. Verbal expression of emotion is genuinely difficult for them. It is not that they do not feel things. They feel things deeply, sometimes more deeply than the average person. But the connection between what they feel and their ability to articulate it is like a road with a lot of construction on it. There are blocks. There are detours. Getting from the feeling to the words is not a smooth journey. So instead of telling you how they feel, they show you. And the way they show you is through action. Consistent, small, reliable action. He notices that your car needs an oil change and he books the appointment without you asking. He remembers that you mentioned being stressed about something and he shows up with your favorite food. He fixes the thing in your apartment that has been broken for months. He does the research for a trip you casually mentioned wanting to take someday. He handles the thing so you do not have to. These are not random acts of kindness. These are intentional acts of devotion from a person who does not know how to say I love you clearly, but is desperate for you to feel it. Pay attention to what he does when you are not looking. Pay attention to how he anticipates your needs. That is his heart talking when his words cannot. The third thing is that he introduces you to his private world. Avoidants have a very strong sense of personal space, and I do not just mean physical space. I mean emotional space, mental space, the space of their inner life. They are extremely selective about who gets access to that. They guard their private world fiercely because vulnerability is terrifying to them. And letting someone into your private world requires vulnerability. So when an avoidant invites you in, when he tells you about his family in a way that goes beyond the surface, when he shows you his apartment and it actually feels like you are being allowed into his real life, when he introduces you to his closest friends, when he shares something about his past that he does not typically share, when he lets you see the version of him that is not curated for public consumption, that is trust. That is him deciding that you are safe enough to let in. And for an avoidant, that decision is not made lightly. It is not made quickly, and it is not made for everyone. If he is showing you his real life, his real friends, his real history, his real self, then you are not just someone he is dating. You are someone he is genuinely invested in. That is rare for him. That should be rare to you. The fourth sign is that he tolerates emotional conversations even when it is clearly uncomfortable for him. This one is huge. Avoidants hate emotional conversations. And I mean hate in the most visceral sense of the word. Something in their system goes on high alert when a relationship conversation starts. When someone says, "We need to talk about how I feel," an avoidant's first instinct is to want to be anywhere else in the world. The discomfort is real. The urge to deflect, minimize, change the subject, or just emotionally check out is real. But here is what is also real. When an avoidant who cares about you decides to sit in that discomfort, when he does not walk away, when he does not roll his eyes or shut down completely, when he actually tries to engage, even imperfectly, even haltingly, even in a way that is frustrating because he is not saying exactly what you need to hear, That is love. Imperfect, struggling, trying its hardest love. You have to calibrate your expectations here. You are not going to get the emotionally fluent partner who processes feelings in real time and gives you beautiful language about your relationship. What you might get is someone who tries, someone who sits through the discomfort because leaving would mean losing you, and losing you is worse than being uncomfortable. If he is showing up for those conversations, even badly, that is something. That is worth something significant. The fifth sign is that he is consistent over time. This one is a test. And it is a test that takes time to see the results of. Because anyone can show up well in the beginning of a relationship. The beginning is easy. The beginning is exciting. The beginning does not require real vulnerability because there is not enough history to be vulnerable about. The real test of an avoidant is what happens after the honeymoon phase. What happens after the first real argument? What happens after the first time you needed him and it was inconvenient? What happens after months and years, not just weeks? Avoidants who are not genuinely invested tend to start strong and then fade. The pattern is very predictable. They are attentive and present at the beginning, and then slowly, gradually, they create more and more distance until you are wondering how you ended up feeling so alone in a relationship. That is the avoidant who is not really trying. Please stop for a second. I asked you at the start of the video to leave a comment. If you already did, thank you. If not, take 2 seconds and do it now. It really helps this video reach more people. But the avoidant who is genuinely invested, he shows up consistently, not perfectly, not without occasional moments of withdrawal, but consistently. You can count on him. He does what he says he is going to do. He is there. And over time, instead of becoming more distant, he slowly becomes slightly more open, slightly more present, slightly more willing to engage. The trend is positive. Slow, maybe, but positive. That tells you everything. The sixth sign is that he fights for the relationship instead of running when things get hard. Here is where you really see what someone is made of. Every relationship has moments of real friction. Moments where the easier path would be to walk away. Moments where the emotional cost of staying is high and the escape route is clearly marked. For an avoidant, those moments are especially tempting because their default program says, this is too much. Get out. Protect yourself. But watch what he does when the relationship is genuinely at risk. Watch what happens when you have had a serious argument, when something has broken down between you, when there is real distance and real hurt on both sides. Does he disappear? Does he go quiet for days and then reappear as if nothing happened? Or does he come back? Does he say, even clumsily, even in a way that is not perfectly articulated, I do not want to lose this? Because an avoidant who fights for the relationship is an avoidant who has chosen you over his own comfort. He has chosen vulnerability over self-protection. He has chosen to stay when every instinct is telling him to go. That is not something you see every day. That is not something you let go of easily. The seventh sign is that he remembers the details. This one is subtle, but it matters enormously. Avoidants, especially ones who are emotionally invested, are often extremely observant. They notice things. They pay attention to who you are, what you like, what matters to you, even when you have not explicitly told them. Because even if they struggle to express their feelings, they are watching. They are absorbing. They are cataloging the details of who you are, because those details matter to them. So he remembers that thing you mentioned 6 months ago about your grandmother. He remembers how you take your coffee. He remembers the name of your best friend's boyfriend, even though he has only heard it once. He remembers that you get anxious before job interviews, and he texts you on the morning of yours without you having to remind him. He knows the small things because he has been paying attention. And the reason he has been paying attention is because you matter to him. You are not background noise in his life. You are someone he is actually seeing. The eighth sign is that he makes space for your emotions even when they make him uncomfortable. We already talked about how avoidants struggle with emotional conversations, but this one goes a step further. It is not just about tolerating conversations about the relationship. It is about whether he can hold space for your emotional experiences in general. Whether he can sit with you when you are sad without trying to immediately fix it or change the subject. Whether he can let you be upset without shutting down or getting defensive. Whether he can be present with your feelings without those feelings overwhelming him to the point where he has to escape. This is a developmental skill for an avoidant. It does not come naturally. It requires active effort. So when you notice that he is getting better at it, when you notice that he sits with you during hard moments more than he used to, when you notice that he has started to ask how you are feeling and actually wait for the answer, that is growth. Real growth. That is a man who is actively working on his ability to show up for you. And that kind of intentional growth is one of the most valuable things you can witness in a partner. The ninth sign is that he chooses you in front of other people. Avoidants can be very private about their relationships. They do not typically broadcast their feelings or make public declarations. So when an avoidant chooses you publicly, when he makes it clear to the people in his life that you are important to him, when he prioritizes you in social situations, when he stands up for you or acknowledges you in front of others, that is significant. It does not have to be dramatic. It might be as simple as the way he talks about you to his friends, the way he refers to you, the fact that he has talked about you to them at all, the fact that you are integrated into his life, his plans, his conversations in a way that makes it clear you are not just a passing presence. You are part of his world. And for an avoidant who typically keeps his emotional life very compartmentalized, letting you into that public-facing version of his life is a meaningful act of commitment. The 10th sign, and this one is perhaps the most important of all, is that he does the work. What do I mean by that? I mean that he acknowledges that his attachment style creates challenges. He does not use avoidance as an excuse indefinitely. He does not shrug and say, "This is just who I am," and then expect you to absorb all of the emotional cost of his patterns. Instead, he is actually trying to understand himself. Maybe he reads about attachment styles. Maybe he goes to therapy. Maybe he just has honest conversations with you about his own tendencies and his own struggles. Maybe he comes to you and says, "I know I shut down sometimes. I am working on it. I do not want to do that to you." That is the difference between an avoidant who is aware and growing and an avoidant who is using their attachment style as a permanent hall pass for unavailability. The first one is worth fighting for. The second one will exhaust you for years and leave you emptier than you started. Because here is the truth that is harder to hear, but more important to understand. Attachment styles are not destiny. They are patterns, and patterns can change. They change slowly. They change with effort. They change when someone has enough motivation and enough safety to do the work. But they do change. And an avoidant who is genuinely in love with you and genuinely trying to grow is one of the most beautiful things you can witness, because you are watching someone dismantle a protective system they built over an entire lifetime. You are watching someone choose love over fear, and that is not a small thing. That is enormous. Now I want to address something directly, because I know some of you are sitting there reading these signs and desperately trying to match them up with the person you are thinking about. And some of you are going to find the match. Some of you are going to read this and feel that quiet recognition, that sense of, oh, that is what he is doing. That is what all of this has been. And if that is you, hold on to that clarity. Let it settle. But some of you are going to read these signs and notice that the person you are thinking about is not matching them. Some of you are going to realize honestly that what you have been mistaking for avoidant love is actually just unavailability with no forward movement. And that is a hard thing to see clearly, but it is important. Because there is a difference between an avoidant who is genuinely investing in you and an avoidant who is simply enjoying the benefits of your presence without doing the work of showing up for you. The first one will grow slowly but unmistakably in your direction. The second one will keep you in a pattern of hope and disappointment that never resolves. And you deserve to know the difference. You deserve to be able to see it clearly. So let me give you a framework for thinking about it simply. Ask yourself this. Over time, is this person becoming more present or less present? Over time, are they showing more of these signs or fewer? Is the trend moving toward you or away from you? Because that is what tells you everything. Not any single moment, not any single gesture. The trend over time. An avoidant who is falling in love with you will move toward you slowly but steadily. There will be steps backwards sometimes. There will be moments of withdrawal. But the overall arc over months is one of increasing closeness, increasing trust, increasing investment. If you are seeing that arc, if you can trace it honestly and see genuine movement in your direction, then you have something real. You have something worth protecting. But if the arc is flat, or if it is moving away from you, if every moment of closeness is followed by a retreat that takes you further back than where you started, then you are not watching love develop. You are watching yourself get smaller while waiting for someone who is not coming toward you. And no one should make themselves smaller waiting for someone who is not moving toward them. Now, I also want to talk about something that gets lost in these conversations about avoidance. And it is this. You cannot love someone into readiness. You cannot be patient enough, understanding enough, accommodating enough, or perfect enough to make an avoidant person ready to love you if they are not ready. Readiness has to come from them. Motivation has to come from them. The work has to be theirs to do. What you can do is be clear about what you need. Not in an ultimatum-driven, weaponized way, but in an honest, grounded, self-respecting way. You can say, this is what a relationship looks like for me. This is what I need to feel safe and loved. I want to build that with you. And I need to know if you want that too. And then you watch what they do with that information. Because someone who is genuinely invested will hear that and feel something shift. They might not respond perfectly in the moment. They might need time to process it, but they will come back to it. They will think about it, and their actions in the weeks and months that follow will tell you whether they are choosing you or whether they are choosing comfort. And if they choose comfort over you, that is information. Painful information, but valuable information. Because it frees you to stop investing in something that is not going to give you what you need. Here is something else I want you to sit with. Loving an avoidant is not a project. Let me say that again because it is important. Loving an avoidant is not a project. Your love does not get to be withheld until they are fixed. Your worth does not increase or decrease based on whether you can successfully help someone become emotionally available. That is not what love is. That is caretaking. That is managing. And it is not fair to either of you. The healthiest version of loving an avoidant is one where you show up fully as yourself, with your needs clearly known and your standards clearly maintained. And you allow the other person the space and the safety to move toward you at the pace they are genuinely capable of, without abandoning yourself in the process, without shrinking yourself in the process, without making yourself so small and so accommodating that you disappear. Because the avoidant person who is truly right for you does not need you to disappear. They need you to be so grounded and so secure in who you are that your presence actually makes them feel safe enough to open up. Your security is what creates the conditions for their openness. Not your anxiety, not your chasing, not your constant reassurance seeking. Your groundedness, your confidence in your own worth, The fact that you know what you bring to a relationship and you are not desperate for them to confirm it. That is what changes the dynamic. That is what creates the space for an avoidant to actually lean in instead of pulling away. And I know that is easier said than done. I know that when you are in the middle of it, when you are feeling the push and pull, when you cannot tell if they are coming toward you or moving away, it is incredibly hard to stay grounded. It is incredibly hard not to grasp for reassurance or to make yourself smaller in hopes that they will feel more comfortable. It is hard, but it is the work. Your work. Just as their emotional growth is their work. You grow, they grow. And if you are growing in the same direction toward each other, towards something real and healthy, then you have something. Then you have the kind of relationship that is worth the difficulty. Let me bring this back to the signs we talked about. If the avoidant in your life stays when things get hard, shows up through actions, lets you into his private world, remains consistent over time, fights for the relationship instead of running from it, remembers the little things, holds space for your emotions, and is actively working to grow, then you are not dealing with someone who cannot love you. You are dealing with someone who loves you in the only language he currently knows how to speak, and who is learning new words for your sake. That kind of love is rare. It may not look like the movies. Sometimes love looks like a man having a conversation that terrifies him because he doesn't want to lose you. Sometimes it looks like actions instead of words. Sometimes it looks like someone fighting every instinct to pull away and choosing to stay. If you have that person in your life, don't dismiss them too quickly. Learn to read the language, because what they're offering may be the most genuine love you've ever received. If this resonated with you, comment the word open below and share where you are in your own journey. Subscribe for more conversations about love, attachment, and building something real. Thanks for being here, and take good care of yourself.